Did you spot the business mistake in this Mexican restaurant? Recently, I did a short version of Can You Spot the Business Mistake, where I introduced this restaurant. I said that this business was literally losing thousands of dollars a month because of the business mistake that they're making. I know a lot of businesses make this mistake, which is why it actually ended up in this series. As a flight attendant, I travel all over the country and I see mistakes like this quite often. However, that's not what makes me an expert in this particular mistake. I actually had my own business about 20 years ago before I became a market financial feasibility researcher, and my business specifically helped small businesses. One of the things I helped them with was bookkeeping. I got to see their numbers. I got to see how much they made with credit cards, and I got to see how much they made with just cash only, because I had a lot of clients in a lot of different industries back then. Today, we're going to crunch the numbers. The business mistake at this business is the cash only sign. Now, as a business owner, if you're making this mistake, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is not a business mistake. If I were to accept credit cards, I would have to give up a percentage of my profits, and my profits aren't that high to begin with. So I don't want to give up potentially 4% of a sale just to accept a credit card. And that's understandable. I can understand why business owners would say that, but that decision is going to cost you thousands of dollars, and we're going to break it down into 3 reasons. 1, how the business is losing customers by accepting cash only. 2, how the ATM is losing customers for the business. And 3, the true cost of accepting credit cards. The first one we're going to talk about is who your customers are and why accepting cash only is going to lose you about 40% of your potential market. The first thing we're going to talk about is the restaurant's profile. The restaurant, we'll put it right here, Restaurant X, happens to be on a very busy street. Up north of the restaurant in this area is a poor Black community. The housing price in this community is roughly between $25,000 to $50,000 per house. Now, there's a street that goes over here, and then there's a freeway here, and way over here is a Target, and over here is a Walmart. These are about 1.0 miles from the restaurant. This area is largely Hispanic community, and the housing price is a little bit higher, around $75,000 to $100,000. Here, this is a mixed community. It's a little more affluent. The housing market is probably around $175,000 plus. Now, the freeway is over here, and on the other side of this freeway is a more affluent area, and the housing prices are about $150,000 up. The reason I'm pointing this out to you is because most of the clientele in this particular community, it's not going to come from the Hispanic community. You may be thinking, but it's a Mexican restaurant. It's kind of like this. If you were Italian and your family made amazing Italian food and you learned how to make amazing Italian food, would you really go to an Italian restaurant that often to eat Italian food when you know you can make it better at home? So the same thing, Mexican community, they've often had recipes passed down generation to generation that are more authentic than what you might find at a restaurant. They would probably not be interested in going to a Mexican restaurant. Next, the Black community. This is a poorer community, and most likely demographically, they're probably trying to save their money for things that are important to them. The reason I'm showing you all of this is most likely they're not going to be customers from the Hispanic community. The Black community is probably not going to buy from them either, because to spend $15 for a meal is likely above their budget when they have housing that low. Next, that leaves the mixed community here and the affluent community over here. Those are more likely going to be where their customers are coming from. This community, there are more Mexican restaurants that are closer, in nicer areas, easier to get in and out of. So it's likely that these people are not going to want to go visit the restaurant either, which leaves this community. This community is where most of their clientele are going to be coming from. Keep in mind, people come from the freeway over here, they go to Target, they go to Walmart, then they go back to the freeway and they leave. Hopefully that all makes sense so far and you're still with me. Next, I want you to think about this. Let's start with loss of customers. I've just shown you where the business is and where most likely the business is coming from. Now, for a business like this, it's generally seen as a fast food restaurant, but it's also kind of mid-pricing because this restaurant's average meal is $15 per person. And today we're going to do all of the numbers based on one person and one sale. Generally, a restaurant like this would have a 5-mile radius. People would drive about 5 miles to go to this kind of restaurant because there's no drive-through. The experience isn't particularly fancy. It's just an average atmosphere. It's an average price. And the fact that they actually take cash only will detract from the business. In fact, they actually put it on the door cash only. So when you walk in, that's what you see. This sign will guarantee that they lose thousands of customers a month because roughly 40% of Americans now do not carry cash. Now, imagine if they had 10,000 people in a 5-mile radius. If you times that by 40%, that is automatically 4,000 people. If you have 10,000 people in a 5-mile community, 4,000 people will not be eating there, which leaves potentially 6,000 customers that they can get from their markets. Well, we've just eliminated 3 areas that the customers are going to be coming from. So if we have 6,000 customers now in this general community, and we've just divided that down even further into fourths, technically that would be around 1,500 people that this restaurant would draw customers from this market, which is going to take us straight into the ATM. I'm going to talk to you about the downside of what an ATM machine would mean and why it might drive your customers away. Here's what you need to think about. Number 1, you can only draw $20 denominations. And on top of that, there's going to be a fee. Let's say it's $2, just for simplicity's sake, it's 10%. But let's face it, we've all seen that it's often $3 or even $4 for a fee. But let's say the restaurant managed to make a deal with the bank and get it as low as possible with their customers at $2. Now, the average meal is $15. And this is just for one person. If you want to add a drink, and if you wanted to add, say, chips and guacamole to go with that, well, now I believe it was $3 for a drink and let's say $6 for guacamole, because that's the average price in a lot of Mexican restaurants. Well, now we're at $24. That means from the ATM machine, we now have to take away $40. And yes, we're still paying a $2 fee, which makes it $42. So this meal for one person is now going to mean that the customer has to take $42 out of the ATM machine in order to buy a meal for one person. Let's say they decide, okay, I don't want to take $42 out of my bank right now. I just want to take $22 out of my bank. So this option is out, which means they have to look at this and they go, okay, now even though I'm taking $20 out, really I only have $20 to spend, which means this is out, and that will leave me $18. But then you got to figure in tax, which in this area happens to be 10%, so that's $1.80, which means that this is now $19.80. And guess what? The person can't tip. If they're going to tip, they're going to tip 20 cents. That really sucks. So they might decide, I don't really want to not leave a tip, so I'm going to go ahead and take the drink off also. Now they're at $15. It's $1.50 on the tax. It's $16.50 total, which leaves $3.50 for a tip. So the business has just lost this $9 potential income just because they don't take a credit card. And now they've only made $16.50 instead. That ATM machine is actually going to cost them money. The point is somebody like me, I don't carry cash. So now when I think of a Mexican restaurant, I don't think of that place because I know I don't carry cash, and I honestly run through this scenario in my head. I do not want to take cash out of the ATM and pay a fee just to eat at a restaurant, because that is going to add $2 to the cost of my meal. So that's technically now $17 for a meal that would have been $15 if I had just carried cash. So in a way, the business is going to lose out on money as well, because the customer now has to make the decision, do they take out more money from their bank account, which might affect bills that are being paid, just to eat this one meal at this restaurant? Or do they just downsize what they're eating so that they can stay within the budget that they made for themselves before they walked into the restaurant? So that's option number 2 of how it hurts a business. Now, let's get into option number 3. 3, I'm going to talk to you about what would happen to your business if you actually did accept credit cards, how much the dollars and cents would be. Let's say you have now accepted credit cards, and now that person that would have downsized their meal to $15 so they could stay under $20 for the ATM, they don't have to do that now. So that $3 is back for the drink, and that $6 is back for the guac. And now, again, we are at $24. $2.40. So the sale is now at $26.40, and the customer does not have to pay the $2 fee. Plus, they likely are getting points, cash, miles, or whatever from their credit cards. It's another benefit for your customer that you're not actually paying for, but you've given it to them. So let's talk about the fee. By accepting credit cards, you are basically going to pay about 4% of a sale. $26.40 times 4% equals $1.05. So the business is basically losing $1.05 for this $26.40 sale. This is going to be the final number for that one person compared to the $15 that they would have spent with the ATM machine. In effect, you're actually gaining about a $10 sale by taking a credit card. Now you may be thinking, nah, that's not how it works. They would have totally bought all of that anyway. They would have just taken out $40. I can see where you might think that, but hopefully you can also see where I'm coming from. There's a lot of people like me out there who are budget conscious, and we don't want to take that much money out of an ATM at one point. But taking it off of a credit card is not taking it out of your bank account, so it's not going to affect your bills. A lot of people are actually thinking about how to keep as much money as possible in their bank account and then aren't as careful with credit cards. So here's another thing that I learned from Mary Kay. I first joined Mary Kay about 20 years ago to be an independent consultant, and I am actually still a consultant. I don't sell, so don't ask me to sell you anything. It just so happened that right after I signed, Mary Kay started taking credit cards. One of the numbers that they published back then was that if you told customers that you accepted credit cards, we would make an average of 27% more in sales than if we just accepted cash or check. So think about that. That was Mary Kay, and that was 20 years ago, 27%. Now, if that number were to actually be a standard number in the industry, let's say we'll even make it lower, 20%. You would make 20% more sales by accepting a credit card rather than not accepting a credit card. So for every $10 in sales you make, they would buy something extra for $2. You can kind of see where that might make you more money. So that is the basics of why I say that accepting cash only could literally cost you thousands of dollars a month. One, because you're losing 40% of your market immediately. If your market is constricted like this particular business's market is, that's basically 40% of the leftover. Because of where they position themselves, they've already lost like 3/4 of their business. They're down to a 25% pocket, and that 25% pocket, they've lost 40% within there. So the numbers would go even smaller. Then, like I said, if you're doing an ATM thing, even if you've negotiated the smallest ATM fee possible, and you would likely benefit from that ATM fee, the fact of the matter is the customer is going to take out less money and order less to stay within the budget that cash creates. It's not a budget that people want. And on the flip side, if you take credit card, you are going to pay 4% of the sale, but you very likely will actually make 20, 30, 40, even up to 60% more on your sale simply because you have lifted the restraint that cash sales make. So my solution to you is if you're thinking, I don't know if I want to deal with all of that, that sounds like a lot of work. Companies like PayPal generally help small businesses make money, and they generally charge a smaller fee. The last time I looked into PayPal, you could get this little square for like $10 at Target, and you could accept credit cards with it. The money would go directly into and you could just transfer it straight into your bank account. That information is here. Basically, the point that I'm trying to make to you is that if you are a business that does cash only, you should seriously consider lifting that because it does not need to be expensive. You can run credit cards through an iPad or even an Android phone. It's literally a plug and swipe kind of situation. If you want to know what the customers think, make sure you go check out the short. Look at the comments. I did have customers put what they thought about this mistake in the comments of that video. Just as a final reminder, for those of you that don't know me, I will tend to answer questions only within the first 24 hours of any video post going live. So if you'd like to ask me questions in future videos, make sure that you not only hit subscribe, but hit that notification button as well. That way, when you ask me questions, I can try to answer it. Anything after 24 hours will be answered in an upcoming video. Finally, if you do like what I posted, please make sure to hit that like button because it will help me spread the word to more businesses. Thank you guys again for watching. See you in the next video.